Yeah, we got him, and then we got 2 dogs.
Oh, nice. What kind of dogs?
The one I'm with right now on the couch, he is a Maltese Shih Tzu.
Okay.
And then we have a Maltese Chihuahua. She's in the bedroom with Linda.
So when you're on your bulking phase, do you do multi Shih Tzus?
Oh, that was cheesy.
Oh, this one's gonna be full of them, I tell you.
It's gonna be great.
Welcome back to the podcast. We are actually going to jump back into our running a fitness business series just because I think that fits in well here. And we're here with Mike Salazar from, what's the name of your gym, Mike?
Evolution Strength and Conditioning in Chicago.
In Chicago. And he's been running a very successful business from the outside looking in, and started with some modest beginnings and has branched out a little bit and is now quite successful, and we'd like to pick his brain on those things. So we have a few questions from Mike.
Mike, can you just kind of start out by telling us how you started in the fitness industry? So like how you started off as a personal trainer.
As opposed to flipping burgers.
As opposed to flipping burgers. That's not what I wanted to do. How do I put this? So growing up, how you have your circle of friends, when you're a kid, and you always have that one kind of fat friend. That was me growing up.
Right.
I feel closer to you already,
that
Mike.
Alone, yeah, that alone kind of tells you everything. So, that's I guess kind of rough, with friends pick on you and whatnot. So
were you looking for a way to gain more confidence, or was there maybe a catalyst that set off a chain of events, and because you had, those circumstances growing up being the fat kid, you just kind of stuck with it?
Truthfully, I was always pretty athletic, even though I was kind of like the heavier kid. I played sports and I was still pretty active. I actually got into fitness more. I guess I would say I paid attention to it more probably when I was going through adolescence, and I started noticing girls, and I'm like, man, I got to do something about this. So like, my grandfather had weights in the house, and I would just like mess around with that, and I was pretty almost adamant, like I got to make some changes. So between, messing around with the weights at the house, my body started changing, and my friends kind of noticed, and I thought it was kind of cool, like how they were noticing, more positive changes in me as opposed to, just being kind of the heavy kid. Did
you get any pushback from your social circle, whether it was family or friends, being like, why are you doing this? Or even Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like there was a lot, of like, oh, be careful, you might hurt yourself. You're starting off too young, so on and so forth from both, family and friends. But when they realized that, this was something that, I kind of got into, and it's not just a phase. They just kind of accepted it, and then I became like kind of the fitness guy amongst, your friends. So like, you have your circle of friends, and you have there's always that one fat guy or fat kid. And then now that you have, another circle of friends, there's always like your fitness resource, right? And
right.
So I became that guy.
So you obviously started at a young age. So how did you learn about lifting weights? Like, did you just kind of go to you were doing them at home, but then were you seeking out others who knew about it, or did you start reading, or?
Good question. So growing up around that same age, I was always a big fan of like superheroes, like Wolverine, the Incredible Hulk. And then I also grew up, watching guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger on TV, and WWF wrestling, and so on and so forth. So I always liked that look. So naturally, I'd look at magazines and like look up, routines and so on and so forth, and what these guys were doing, or at least what they were saying that they were doing, and those articles. And when I was old enough to get a gym membership, my parents got me one. And I started going to the gym, and again, like with that same level of, I guess, motivation or discipline over the years. I guess initially the first couple months, just like people at the gym would just like notice, like, hey man, I see you're going to the gym pretty regularly, you work pretty hard, so on and so forth. And they would give me, these, I guess, older guys, right? Mm-hmm. Looking back, they were probably like in their 20s or 30s or something, would just like kind of give me advice. And, I took what I thought was, valuable, I guess, and then kind of just took that and with a grain of salt and ran with it. And then so that's where I guess that's kind of like the way I got into personal training. I saw trainers there at the gym that I was working out at, and I kind of liked how they were, very, engaging with their clients and watching their clients and seeing that energy and whatnot. And it was a very cool experience for me to watch. And I saw that they were helping their clients and being better and being healthier and so on and so forth. And they were adding that kind of that health component to their lives. So I reached out to them and, talked to them about, hey, what is it? How do you like being a trainer? So on and so forth. And they were also, very responsive and very welcoming and encouraging. So that's how I guess I got more interested towards that I guess career path.
Right. So from that point, did you at this point you're in high school. So did you wait until you finished high school to get a personal training certificate or training, or did you kind of do it during high school at all? No. So after high school?
No. So during high school, I was athletic. I wrestled, I played golf, and I ran track. And I guess not here, but personal training programs require students to be 18 years minimum. Oh, so okay. I had to play the waiting game.
Right.
So that's what I did. I focused on sports, did well with that, and then focused on at that point I guess you could say bodybuilding at the time.
Right.
So I just ran with it and kind of did high school stuff and so on and so forth. And then when I graduated, I signed up for, I think it was an ACE personal training program, and I did that as soon as I could. Then went through all the materials in the matter of, I don't know, maybe 12 to 14 weeks or something. I was really, really wanting to get my foot in the door. So that was my first personal training certificate, and after that, I actually started working for that same gym that I was a member at.
Nice, and that was in 2004, from what I read from your website.
Yes. So I was 18. Yeah. So I turned 18 in 2004, which is the same year I graduated high school. So yeah, I started working for that company in September of that year.
Wow. Nice. So you started really young. Did you find that a challenge, being so young? Because I would say the average trainer is probably in their early 20s when they start out.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was very challenging, to be honest, Rachel. Being so young and then being right out of high school, I'm working with these folks that are 10, 15 years older than I am. Right. And, mm-hmm. So there's that component where there's the actual training component where you're bringing that energy to the session and, getting these folks moving and educating them and so on and so forth. But then at the end of the day, when you're a trainer working for the corporate gym, you got to sell them. Right. So here's me, the 18-year-old kid, essentially, who's working with these busy professionals, asking them for X amount of thousands of dollars to work out with me for a number of weeks. So it was really, truthfully, when I first started doing that, I actually tried to not tell my folks how old I was. I almost felt that would have been that they'd be put off by knowing that I was so young, and so I don't want to say inexperienced, but yeah, so young and just really just fresh out of high school.
Yeah, no,
so I lied about my age a lot.
I could see that because I personally ran into challenges being so young when I started in the Pilates studio. I was a little bit older than you. I started when I was 21. And people often would just immediately assume I was just the front desk girl. Like I wasn't a teacher or anything because I was too young, or I did get a few comments about like, what would you know? And then I knew immediately it was kind of, they were basing it off of my appearance. Like I must be too young to even have an understanding of how to do these kinds of things. So I can relate to that for sure. Now, I think it was about a year ago, I saw a Facebook post, one of your Facebook posts, and this was when you were opening up your current location, I believe. So you were expanding into new space, but in your Facebook post, you kind of talked about your journey, about how you started out, and the kind of the steps that you've taken to get here. It super motivated me.
Everything but the ties with the mob stuff that we didn't really relate. We didn't really relate to that, but
the mob stuff or the bribes.
But yeah, I found it super motivating, and that's really what made me want to kind of reach out to you and kind of have this podcast with you. So I would like you to kind of tell that story about how you started out, and partially to give the listeners an idea of where we're coming from since we read the post and whatnot.
Sure. So where do I start? I'm working for corporate. I'm 18. I end up spending like 4 years working for corporate, learning the ins and outs, and essentially that's what I wanted to do. Like when I was first able to work with someone, I'm like, this is what I want to do. I like helping people. I like seeing them motivated, and I like seeing them excited to exercise. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I got to find a way to make this work down the line. I can't be working for corporate, getting paid pennies on the dollar. So there's got to be a better way for me to do this. I bit my tongue and I stuck with corporate just so I could confidently learn the ins and outs of what it's like being in the fitness industry, right? The sales, the marketing, the promotion, everything, janitorial stuff, like all that. At the same time, I was also going to school for business. I majored in sports management and business management, again, just to expand, just soak in as much information as I can as about running a business.
Right.
So that was that's how it started. Fast forward to me graduating college. I graduated college, great. There were some corporate changes going on with the company I was working for, which were not very favorable to me or my staff. So at the time, I actually got promoted, and I was actually now then running the personal training department at the gym that I was working at.
Okay.
So they were going through some changes, like pay changes and structure changes and so on and so forth that were not very. It was very corporate and not very fitness friendly. Mm-hmm. So it was very. It was kind of sucking the passion out of me, and I could tell, and so I wanted out. I left in 2007, and then I actually worked for. I rented space out of a studio, not too far from where I was at, and I liked the setup. The gym was cool. The clientele was a little different, but the setup, the business setup was cool. And I thought, you know what? Like, I'm paying this guy rent every month, and I could use that money to start my own business, right? Like I have a brand, I have a good following. People. I was very approachable, right? As a trainer, I was not really, I know it all, and I was not really, machismo, where I would, maybe turn folks away. I was very. You were approachable, magnetic. Very. I mean, it was, and I knew that that's if you're going to be in the fitness industry, in an industry where you're constantly face to face with people, you can't be, unapproachable. You have to learn how to just be cool with everyone, regardless of anything.
Right.
That's the way I see it. So, I rented space from this guy for about a year. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to fire the trigger on this. I had spent a year writing a business plan and crunching numbers from all scenarios because I was scared. And so just to give you perspective, this was me at 23, right? So I'm 23 years old, just graduated college. I'm living at my mom's house, and I'm just like, all right, I'm going to take all this money that I've been keeping under my bed, and all of a sudden I'm going to just dump it into this idea. So I wanted to make sure that, I was gonna do it right. Also, I should preface that, like, the way I started Evolution and the whole brand was all organic, right? It was all like my own thing. Like I didn't get loans. I didn't have like investors. I don't have an inheritance or anything like that. So
right.
It's just like, hustle, right? All the time.
Yeah. Starting from the ground up.
So starting from the ground up and then making sure that like it's organic, right? You're sustaining it yourself and you're not having other people funnel money in that you have to talk to them later.
Yeah.
So I opened a studio, right? I had a small studio not too far from where I grew up, right by my mom's house. And it was cool. It was 1,500 square feet. I outfitted it with equipment that I felt were, important. And it was cool. We grew, we had this community. I had my clients that followed me. And what was really interesting is that the staff that I was managing, a year or two prior, ended up leaving the company as well. And they had heard, through the pipeline that I had this open space and they, wanted in. They wanted like, hey, is it okay if we train there? So that's kind of how the model kind of evolved to where instead of it just being me, training out of my gym, it was me providing a venue for independent trainers to
right.
Grow their business, right? So that, they're not, again, getting paid pennies to the dollar, where they could go, come to Evolution and provide their clients a great training environment, and grow their, develop their brand and develop their own business and train their clients how they feel and everybody wins. So that's how it started. I like to think that I was one of the first studios to do that in Chicago, which I feel is very fortunate for us, because then we got a little bit of a head start to develop the brand and to kind of set the tone and set the standard for that type of, I guess, what you would call like a hybrid training facility, where it's not very, it's not, machine. It's
right.
It's us kind of teaching folks how to use their bodies as machines, right? So they can get more out of their workouts. And then it allows our trainers to be very creative, right? And I also, want to say that, like, I was never really a very artsy fartsy type of kind of guy growing up. Like, I was terrible at music. I could read it, but like instruments didn't work out. And then I was not very good at, I guess, painting, drawing, things like that. So that type of creativity was not there for me. But like with me training clients, that's like another outlet for me to do that. And I feel like every trainer, and every instructor and every coach has their own kind of ways of being creative. And I feel like doing that through exercise is a great outlet for them to do.
Right.
So the business was doing well. It was growing. People were liking the concept. They liked that whole private instruction in a gym type setting, but not with the I guess inconveniences that you would find at a typical gym. It's never going to be crowded. You're not looking for dumbbells. It's not, for lack of a better term, like filthy, or, you're not going to catch MRSA coming out of the bathroom.
So, people have to be privately trained. It's not, they can't come in and use the gym on their own time then?
So that's how it started.
Oh, okay.
When we were in this small space, it was just trainers with clients. As we grew, and honestly, Rachel, like it was 1,500 square feet, but it grew so fast that we were almost stepping over each other during like the busy hours of the gym.
Right.
And this is where I was like, okay, this happened way too soon. I did not plan for this. We have to do something about it. Fast forward 18 months of me kind of, again, doing some number crunching and making sure that I could put together systems to make it work. That's how we moved into the space that we're in now, which was not that far away from the studio. So we moved from a 1,500 square foot to a 6,000 square foot warehouse, which was huge, right? And there was again a lot, all that money that I was saving under my bed going into this business again. So it's another one of those like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I got to make sure it works. And it grew. I mean, it grew so fast, Rachel. Like, we moved into that space, and so I opened the studio, the small studio, in 2009. We moved into the bigger space in 2013, and by 2015, we were already like stepping over each other. Like,
right?
Like, what happened? How did this happen so fast? So
how did it happen so fast,
dude? Man, like, it's crazy. Like, we don't spend a lot of we haven't spent a dime on advertising. And truthfully, it's just a lot of
word of mouth.
People like hear about us through the pipeline, word of mouth. The way I see it, like, man, like, people, they look for these like corporate gyms, and they're all bargains, right? They're all $40 a month or less, and they go and they're like, oh, this is going to be great, so on and so forth. But if they're folks that are really taking their own fitness goals seriously, they're not. I mean, in my opinion, they're not going to want to put up with all the riffraff that goes on in the gyms. That's like, like the crowds and things being on a place and waiting for machines and so on and so forth. If they're taking their fitness seriously, they're going to spend that extra, whatever, $40, $50, $60.
Right. To get the training
exactly. To get the training, or even to, a workout that's only supposed to take an hour, takes them an hour and 40 minutes because it's like an Easter egg hunt looking for weights at a gym. Whereas, they could come to Evo and it's like, all right, well,
we can get this
50-pound dumbbells everything is where they're supposed to be. It's not crowded. They have plenty of racks, plenty of weights, so on and so forth. They're willing to spend that extra money just to get away from that and get their workouts in.
Yeah.
That I honestly think that's how it grew. And then, truthfully, like, it's also the brand. Like, we have great coaches at the gym who all have their own kind of specialties and skill sets and personalities that can accommodate a wide array of folks. Like regular Mrs. Jones and Mrs. James, or former athletes that are highly competitive who now just have to have families and don't have enough time to spend 5 days in the gym.
Right.
So that's how I feel. We're unique. Like, if people always ask, can you replicate this, somewhere else? Have you thought about franchising, that kind of thing? And then truthfully, like, I believe I could replicate everything that's not human, right? I could replicate the structure, I could replicate the setup, but the problem is, like, it's a people, man. And this, it's people. So that's what makes a difference.
Are your staff employees, or are they subcontractors? So do they rent the space from you, or?
Yeah, they rent the space from us.
Okay.
They're subcontractors, so they're 1099s, and they provide their own insurance, and they set their own rates and deal with all the the finances between all that on their own.
Interesting. They have their own rate, so each trainer could have a different rate.
Correct. However, in order to
you probably marshal any undercutting that might go on.
Correct.
That, right?
And these guys know this, man. Like, a lot of them, when they first come on and they're on their own, they're very like, oh my gosh, what do I charge? I don't want, right. I'm just starting out, so on and so forth. And I tell them straight up, I'm like, you will never get paid what you're worth. So don't ever undersell yourself.
Right.
And they're just like, what? And I'm like, you can trust me on this. Like, don't undersell yourself, because when you do, you'll never get out of that hole. And I find trainers in the industry now just like are constantly like they're all about volume, right? They're going to discount their services so much just to drive up volume.
Hours. You know what? This is a total side, but My very first client that someone, like, I was working in a Pilates studio, but someone was like, okay, I have a friend, they want you to come into your house. How much are you going to charge? I charged them $20 an hour. When I
for you to go to their house.
That's what I first did. And I totally had to learn not to undervalue myself.
Absolutely.
But it was, I didn't think she would pay the rate, so I said $20 because I was scared that I wouldn't get the client. But it wasn't about the price. Like, she needed me to come to her because she had young kids. She didn't care. She just wanted me to show up, right?
She probably would have paid you 5 times as much, and she would have been like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Which eventually she took me aside and she was like, hey, you can't be charging me this. You have to charge me more. And eventually
I feel like trainers need to, there's and both Solomon and you guys both know that, like, there are coaches out there that are very passionate and they're very skilled about fitness. The problem is, like, a lot of them lack that business kind of mindset, and they may be able to get by and make money, but not all of those guys that don't, or those trainers and folks that don't have that business mindset won't ever be able to truly, like, capitalize on their passion for fitness.
Right. And, like, for me, I have to say, I probably don't naturally have a business mindset. I have very much an administrative mindset. Like, I'm very good at, like, doing schedules and whatnot.
It's her way of saying she's really good at bossing people around.
Maybe. And
pointing fingers and do this and that.
But the business side has been a huge learning curve. Mainly, like, I'm hearing you, like, constantly say, punching the numbers. That has been a huge learning curve for me, just because I've never had anyone teach me that. And now that we have a business coach and whatnot, I'm learning that. So, there's so much that people don't even know that goes on behind the scenes. And even me, I'm just like, oh my gosh, constantly sitting there. I swear all my spare time is calculating.
I mean,
and it's not going to stop, Rachel.
No.
Keep going.
like $60 an hour or in that realm sounds great on paper, but logistically, there's just so much stuff that you end up doing that ultimately really justifies that price point. So much stuff that you're doing outside of the classes that you're running, outside of the sessions that you're running with people. There's a lot of work that you have to do. And if you're one of the good ones and you really care about what you do and you care about your clients, I mean, that's where it's that time spent outside of the session that they're really paying for.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And that's one client, Solomon, if you have 10 or 5 or something like that, you're talking about
lots of time.
I mean, exactly. I mean, look at today, I'm like, hey, Rachel, like, 8:30 is fine. And then you're like, hey, you ready? I'm like, shoot, I'm still at work.
That's actually what I said to Sully. I was like, guaranteed. He probably finished with a client at 8:30. Then he has to clean up the gym, put everything away, and then go home. And
then, like, be a father, be a dog, be a dog owner, be a husband, do all that.
There's so much other than work that still has to exist.
Right.
So your business, it does strength and conditioning. It does personal training or one-on-ones. Now, then you've got kettlebells and you also have group classes. Is that correct? Or do you not do group classes is really where I'm questioning. I know you have the kettlebells in there. And
this is, they were definitely something that I definitely wanted to incorporate. And logistically, it's a way for, from a trainer standpoint, instead of charging someone $85 an hour to come in and work out, you could say, hey, if that's not in your budget, we could get you in a group with 5 people and you guys could each pay $40, an hour. So then, it's like a win-win. Client is like, wow, great. I'm saving almost 50%. And then trainers like, wow, instead of getting paid $75, I'm getting paid, $200. So it all works out. So I guess once all of our trainers were on the same page with that, and they started to kind of market themselves as like, hey, we are good training one-on-one, right? That's how we started. We're good at analyzing technique and making corrections on the fly. Let's take that and offer it to a small group, right? And then we use the term small group just because we don't do anything that's like 30 people at a time, you know what I mean? Because then you kind of lose that ability to analyze and that ability to kind of control the session itself. Then it just becomes very it's like a machine, right? You turn it on, it goes, turn it off, it's done. There's not a lot of one-on-one that goes on there.
Right.
But so that's how it started. So all of our trainers had these interesting concepts, right? They wanted to do buns and guns, right? So like a butt workout and then like an upper body workout,
right?
Or everyone had their own idea, and I wanted to exploit that. I'm like, yeah, get creative. Like I don't care what you do, I don't care what kind of concept you throw at us, but definitely like I want your personality in the class. I just don't want like another boot camp or another bridal boot camp, because that's very that's everywhere, man.
Mainstream.
Like it's if you find a boot camp that's $100, great. But then if you find another boot camp that's $85, well, guess what? You're just going to go to that one. There's nothing
unique. Yeah, there's nothing unique that's drawing them in. So how do you help them work on creating something where you can get a little bit more buy-in or get something that's not so pedestrian?
Right, which is a perfect word for that. Typically, I'll reach out. We all have this we're all on a thread. All of our coaches are on a thread. That way, if we have to communicate to if I have to communicate to them all at the same time, I could just do it one time instead of sending multiple emails or what have you. So usually, trainers will look on the schedule and say, hey, is Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday at 5 a.m. available? And typically, depending on the size, it's going to work out. And then I'll just talk to them like, hey, well, what do you want to do? What kind of class do you want to teach? Give me some ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do it for them. I'll tell them like, hey, you put something together, like your proposal, for lack of a better term, and then run it by me. And I'll give you and I'll be very transparent, and I'll tell you like, hey, that's a great idea. You're onto something, keep going in that direction. Or that's terrible, or, it's lacking creativity, put some more thought into it, so on and so forth. I really want to try to have them do it on their own so that they could actually say that it's truly theirs, right? If I feel like if I coach them, it's like, oh, that's basically my idea, you're doing it, So I want them to, it's like little birds that I'm trying to like nurture, and then I eventually want them to like go on their own and just do it on their own, that way it's less for me to do, so I could, focus on what's more important.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes. So, we'll have different classes, and each class will have their own concept. And that's how we'll distinguish them when folks inquire about them, right? If there's, advanced circuits, with Rob, what does that entail? Well, Rob's got a background in he's probably one of our most athletic coaches, and he'll do, a strength component, a conditioning component, and a core component. And that's kind of what you would expect.
Mm-hmm.
What's your interview process like for your trainers?
So let's see. The first thing I ask them, honestly,
and is there any grooming involved once you make a decision? We'll throw that in there.
Sure. No, that's definitely a great question. So let's see. The first question I usually ask when someone's like, hey, I'm interested in, I'm a trainer, I'm interested in joining your group or joining your team. How does that work? First question I usually ask is like, have you played any sort of organized or competitive sport ever in your lifetime? And if they say yes, usually that's kind of like, all right, cool. You're definitely, got some sort of intangible skill that we're looking for. So what I mean is like, I don't know if you guys have ever played any sports. I mean, well, yeah, I know you guys do kettlebell sport, but there's something, when you play competitive sport, whether it's like soccer when you were a kid or any type of like high school collegiate sport, there's something about that
team camaraderie.
That like an athlete will, there's camaraderie, there's discipline, there's, you win together as a team, you lose together as a team. There's this is a game time decision. Like, what do you do? How to make those decisions on the fly. There's so much that is, I guess, soaked up as an athlete that you cannot teach through textbook or classes or even school. That I feel helps people in this career, right? In this kind of industry, the fitness industry, right?
Yeah.
So that's my first question, and then usually after that, it's kind of like the typical resume type questions. Where have you been training in the past? What kind of training do you do? Do you have any references? Things of this, I kind of like things of that nature. More recently, I've actually been asking them to put either myself or another one of our coaches like through a 30-minute workout, giving like specific parameters, meaning like, Rachel, hey, you want to work here? Great. Have you played sports before? Yes, I was a swimmer. Awesome. Now I'm going to have you put me through a workout, but I'm not going to be me. I'm going to be, I'll let you say, I'll say I'm a 40-year-old person who works 60 hours a week, and I have a 45-minute commute on the train each way. And my goals are, general fitness, and my posture sucks. So
right.
There's your parameters. Work with it. Take whatever 15 minutes to prepare, and then walk me through kind of like a typical midweek session. So if they're able to do that without, I don't know, maybe too much stumbling, and not a lot of grooming from me at the time, then chances are now, assuming all their papers are like their certificates and insurance and CPR is all good, then we could definitely, bring them along and start to kind of help them grow their business. So if they can't do that, if it's more like, hey, this is why, if it's not, if that initial interview doesn't go as well as I wanted to, I'll just tell them like, hey, I need you to spend more time working wherever you're, at the gym that you're currently at, and focus on these. And then maybe in 6 months or a year or so, contact me. I'm not going anywhere, and we could see what kind of skills you have, if they've improved, and we could kind of go from there.
So you're looking for more experienced trainers. Like, you don't want green trainers who would have just gotten trained and are starting out. You want someone who can like see various kinds of body types and be able to adjust. Well,
not necessarily. I mean, I think that some people with a good understanding of individual limitations and a decent enough understanding about training modalities, it's like, okay, we're looking for a balance of traits in this trainer. Do they interact well with the client? Are they listening to their needs? Are they working with, at least a basic kind of decent workout structure? And how well are they able to deliver that? I guess.
Right. I mean, yeah, yes. I mean, it's going to be one of those where like I'm going to have to like look at them on each individual basis, and if I have to, I'll ask one of our other trainers to be like, hey, come with me on this and let me know what you think, so on and so forth.
Right.
And it's like how we say that you can have the best program on paper in front of you, but there are those other intangibles that can matter so much more in terms of putting that into play. And so when you're bringing on a new trainer, you can overlook certain things if other things make up for it and stuff like that. And so, are there certain things that you'll weigh more heavily than others? Like, will you weigh the personality over their experience a bit more?
Yes. So, so there's a lot, right? So,
yeah.
So with the trainers that we do bring on, and with the business traffic as it is, I try to, I'll let them know like, hey, I'm here to make sure the gym is running smooth, and I have my own business to take care of, but I want to make sure that the business is a machine that keeps running smoothly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have, Evolution's got a brand. So if I bring on guys or girls or coaches, what have you, on, and we're getting inquiries about, hey, I'm looking for a trainer for this and that. I want to be confident in making recommendations, saying like, hey, thanks for reaching out to us based on your initial consultation. I feel like you would work best with X, Angela, so on and so forth.
Right.
And I want to make sure that, I'm vouching for Angela, right? She's going to be, representing the brand, herself, and my integrity, right? So I want to make sure that whoever I make that recommendation to, I'm very confident, 100% stand by that recommendation. So if I don't feel that, I'm not going to bring them on, just because it's not good business, right? Yes, maybe this trainer, even though they're not what I'm really looking for, may be able to bring money to the business, but at the same time, that's great, fine. But if they hurt the image or the brand, and if they're not congruent with what I feel, is
so are you looking for trainer buy-in to what you're trying to deliver? Like, is that sounds like that's a really important piece for you?
It is, Salman, and it's like there's other tangibles, there's other intangibles too. For example, if I'm talking to them and they can barely make eye contact with me, like, that's going to be impossible for you to grow a business like that.
Right.
Or if I'm chatting with them and I can barely hear them, and we're in my office and maybe they have trouble speaking in public, that's going to also be a very big limiting factor, I think, down the line. And these are all things that they could work on, but they have to be willing to, critique themselves or take this criticism
and build on it.
Yeah, this is right. I'm going to build off this. I'm going to work on it, and then I'll come back. And we've had that happen a few times, 2 or 3 times, where trainers would come in and they would leave a voicemail, and I could barely understand the voicemail. We have to reach out to them, and I'd meet them, and I'm like, "You're a kid. Like, I need you to spend more time at this corporate gym and work on these things." And they're kind of disappointed, and which is cool. But I tell them, like, I'm not shutting the door on you. I'm just saying you're not ready. This is a jungle that you don't want to get into yet.
Yeah. Well, and I think
I want you.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I think it kind of says something about the person if they're willing to put in the time to make improvements. Like, I actually had gotten turned away from a personal training job. And so I came back in and I said, okay, I might not be ready to work here, but can I be a client and learn from your trainers to get an idea of what your trainers train like? And I eventually got a job at that gym.
That's great. That's brilliant. And honestly, Rachel, I feel like, and I just did a kettlebell workshop at another gym to their training staff a couple weeks ago, and one of the things I talked about was the unique relationship a trainer and a client, between the trainer and the client. Mm-hmm. As a trainer, you're an expert, right? Regardless of whether or not the information that you provide is true or beneficial, because that client is still going to see you as an expert, right?
Yeah.
If you tell that client to lemons all over their belly to shrink fat, they'll likely do it. Assuming you can sell that, they'll do it.
Right.
So what I told them was, like, you're in a unique situation, a unique position where you have what you say and what you do has a huge impact on who you're saying it to, right? Mm-hmm. So you need to be able to be educate yourself, like, be willing and open to learning new things, and being okay with saying, like, hey, these are aspects that me as a trainer that I am not good at. I need to improve on it so I can provide a better product. And, right. I feel like when trainers put themselves up on a pedestal and say, I'm a trainer, I passed my test, I know everything, and then they and that's it. Like, they no longer strive to seek out new information. And I feel like that's limiting them big time. And in the short run, they may be able to make money off being a trainer, but in the long run, their lack of willingness to grow, better themselves will reveal itself to the clients, and the clients will eventually be like, wow, this guy is not who I thought he was, or she's not who I thought she was. I need to move on, right?
Mm-hmm. So, kind of taking this on a little bit of a different direction, the kettlebell competitions, do you host more than one? Like we saw that you host the Windy City kettlebell competition. That was in
Correct.
April.
But that's your club, right? Windy City Kettlebell Club?
Correct. I needed to make two distinct entities. It just made it easier to market and to promote. Windy City Kettlebell Club, and then for all things Kettlebell Sport in Chicago and all that, and then keep Evolution Strength and Conditioning, the gym training classes, and keep that kind of separate as opposed to it made it less confusing.
Right, but you run the Kettlebell Club out of your gym.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And do you find, what is the Chicago community like? Is there other clubs in the town, or do you guys have to travel? What's the dynamic in your area?
Can
for
I just
kettlebells?
ask what the population of Chicago is?
3 million people, I think. That's something I'm seeing like that.
Okay. And is it
more people
fairly
in Chicago than we
spread
have.
out? How long would it take to get from one end of the city to the other?
Depending on traffic. Let's
if you were to think of the fastest way to get from one end to the other.
You could probably drive, let's assume there's no traffic, right? And you could probably drive from one end to one end in under an hour, I'd say. East and west is a different story, but north and south, maybe 40 minutes to an hour. I mean, it's a huge city, man. It's a huge city.
Yeah.
Do you feel like basically like a needle in a haystack? You in a sea of potential gyms, you're just like a drop in the bucket? Or are you feeling, especially now, like you're developing a presence that is gaining some traction?
Yeah.
I feel that the fitness community in Chicago is large, right? But I also feel like if you've been around for a while, or if you're doing really well, leveraging social media and whatnot, I feel like people will know who you are, right? And I feel like we're heading in that direction. Either we're there or we're heading in that direction. Based on the kind of statistics we have from social media, it's definitely going in that positive direction.
How did you nail that advertisement spot with On Nutrition with their? I saw that because they filmed at your location, right?
Right. So Optimum Nutrition is based out of Chicago. Truthfully, Simon, I was on my way home for lunch and I got a missed call and voicemail. And usually, I don't know if this happens with you guys too, but usually it's just, when you get voicemails from numbers that you don't recognize, it's usually just some kind of telemarketer or what have you. So I listened to it and it actually sounded legit. They ended up calling us and explaining that they were looking for a spot to film a commercial for their upcoming product, which still kind of sounded very maybe shady, not shady, fake maybe.
Yeah, you never know. And they're getting more and more clever these days.
Right, they're getting it's amazing. So I ended up, I'm like, what the hell? Call him back, and I actually spoke to the guy, and I told him yeah, dude, come by, check it out. We have a lot of natural sunlight, so on and so forth. So he came out, he did the walkthrough, loved it, scheduled the shoot for 2 or 3 days later, and it was great. I mean, it was one of those things where it's like, wow. So now we've kind of developed that relationship with them, and I do anticipate having them come by when they need to, when they're looking for venues to keep us in mind, as opposed to, maybe they don't have to travel so far to kind of get that look that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's kind of out of the blue, man. I have no idea how they found us, but thankfully they did.
Did you feel like that was, now obviously you've made a lot of progress up to this point. Do you feel like that was one of the things that you could now kind of check off your list? It's like, yes, now I have this exposure through this, national brand basically, in this market that's in my industry that has a lot of weight and followers and stuff like that.
Right on. And yes, I do feel like that's definitely going to benefit us. At the very least, I don't care so much about, is it going to bring you business? Is it going to help you, put more people through the door? Like I could care less about that. It more for us legitimizes us as an entity, right? As a presence in Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
lets people know.
And I feel like that's worth more than bringing more people in the door. Just to have that kind of verification, right?
Yeah.
It's like when you go into politics. If you're going from the oil industry into politics, you might have to take a pay cut, but people are going to remember your name. So you might not necessarily need the business that might be possibly generated from that exposure. It's just it legitimizes you a bit more.
Right. And I feel like in this day and age, like, man, like, I feel like in at least in the fitness industry, like people no longer go out and explore different fitness options by themselves, like out of their own curiosity.
No, they usually go because of a friend or
correct.
They see something.
Exactly. People like to be told, hey, go check out this class. Hey, go check out this gym. Hey, go check out, this instructor. They want that. They want their friends to tell them that, or they want to read a review or something. So I feel like being like, again, like having a gym, being validated by that is much more important than just driving in numbers right through the door.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have are you hosting another competition coming up in a couple of weeks?
We are. So traditionally, the Windy City Kettlebell Club has hosted two competitions, the Windy City Invitational, which is in the spring, and then the Windy City Open, which is in the winter. This last year, we partnered up with RockFit, who's also a Kettlebell Sport club in the Chicago area. We actually hosted the Chicago Kettlebell Classic, which is the longest running Chicago kettlebell competition. I think they're going into their 6th year this year. So they were the first ones to, Rock was the first organizer to host the bring kettlebell sport competitions into Chicago, and we're happy to partner up with him and host his competition. That competition is June 9th. So that's coming up. And then we're also, the Windy City Kettlebell Club is putting together a Longcycle only competition. We're calling it the Chicago Longcycle Championships, August 4th, which will put 4 competitions on our calendar. It kind of works out that we have almost one every quarter.
Nice. And so you hold them inside your gym?
We do. We hold them at
and is that
sorry.
Prior to you having this space, were you running kettlebell competitions, or did you just start them when you started to have this space?
So we actually, so we started when we had the space. We actually, our first kettlebell competition we hosted in 2016 was kind of like the soft debut of the, we went through a renovation where we doubled the size of the gym. That was kind of like the soft opening to debut that space, which went well.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was also the day of my birthday, which is also another reason why I tend to like the Windy City Invitational in the spring. It's always been scheduled the weekend of my birthday. So there's something very nostalgic about that, and it really hits home. It's really fun.
That is fun. It's a nice way to celebrate for you.
Exactly. I'm with my friends, my lifters, and it's cool.
Doing
really
something
cool.
You enjoy, and
right, it's so much fun.
Yeah. So with the kettlebell sport, do you foresee trying to grow the sport with part of your business, or is kettlebell sport for you just a fun hobby? How do you see it for yourself?
So I first got into kettlebell sport, in 2010 or something like that. I was bodybuilding at the time and getting ready for shows, and I was driving myself bananas, doing cardio, right? The cardio component of every contest prep. It was just very, very is very hard, very difficult.
Yeah.
And me being an athlete, I wanted something else that I could do, that would kind of knock the cardio component off the list, but also feed into kind of my athletic abilities, which I felt were kind of deteriorating because, I was getting older and I was not doing anything athletic. Right.
Right.
Whoa. Getting older?
Yeah, I know, dude. I know. I'm an old soul, bro. I'm an old soul.
How old are you? I'm like guessing 32.
Yeah, I actually just turned 32.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I was by like all of your dates. I was like, I'm pretty sure he's the same age as us. So you're not that old.
Yeah.
Although there are days.
I felt old. So I was like, oh, maybe I could. I know, we could do circuit training with kettlebells. We had a bunch of kettlebells at the gym. So I was doing some internet searches and I came across kettlebell snatch, and I wanted to incorporate them, and it was cool, great. I was a strong, I at that time I thought I was a strong dude. So I would, snatch a bell, whatever, 40, 50 pounds. And I'm like, man, my hands are really hurting, and this slamming on my arms, not really, can't be really a good thing. So in my quest to kind of look to improve technique, I came across, who else, right? Steve Cotter and his videos, right?
Right.
And I'm like looking, and once you watch one IKFF Steve Cotter video, like your whole YouTube feed just blows up with everything else kettlebell sport, right? So I'm like, wow, these kettlebells are huge. What, they're green, red, like these are so colorful. So in that kind of discovery, I discovered that like, wow, there's like a thing, right, where people compete and they do competitions for reps and so on and so forth. So I was like, wow, that's great. And that's how I got into it. Now how do I want to grow it, if I want to grow it, or is it just a business thing that I want to do? Truthfully, like I like kettlebell sport. I find it fun, right? For me, it's all about training, right? Just kind of anything I could do so that I don't have to, sit on a treadmill or sit on a bike or what have you for, X amount of minutes. And it's fun, man. Like, and that's how we introduce folks to
right.
kettlebell sport, is we tell them it's like a fun way to exercise. You're exercising, but you're also learning about your body and working your heart and so on and so forth. And truthfully, like all of our folks that first get into not even kettlebell sport, but even just working with kettlebells, feel so much stronger when they leave, when they're done with the workout, right?
Yes, yeah.
So there's kind of like this empowering feeling, which I still feel, training with kettlebells, and for students or clients that are feeling that same thing is really cool. So I like I like having our team grow, and I like getting new folks in, and the issue is, with kettlebell sport, like, and training for kettlebell sport, it takes like a special kind of individual to really want to do kettlebell sport and do it well, right? And not just lift the same weights all the time and put up the same kind of range of reps and so on and so forth. That, that's fine if you want to do it as a hobby, but like for someone that wants to, like, I want to improve and I want to see my numbers improve on paper and so on and so forth, it takes like a really kind of insane type of craziness, kind of like, I want to get in this, and I want to practice, and I want to get better.
You're really selling this to the listeners.
It's like a different animal, man. But I feel like when it's no different than when people want to like better themselves through fitness and so on and so forth. They just got to put a lot of energy into it. But truthfully, I'm happy to do both. I'm happy to, and we're happy, everyone here at the club is happy to help folks who are just looking for general fitness or just looking to even better their skills with kettlebells. We're that, and then our team that's growing, they're crazy like us, man. They're just like, what do I got to do to get to that 10 minutes? What's happening? So on and so forth. They're all very kind of surgical, right? When they're analyzing what, mental strategy, conditioning, strength, technique, And that's kind of cool because we're all students in this anyway, right? We're all still babies in this whole sport.
Yeah.
So it's fun kind of discovering it and like sharing it with others as well.
Well, and I think what's super motivating is seeing how excited new people get about the sport. Like when they learn, like, oh, they can goal set and it's not about the other people on the platform. It's about improving their numbers and just how motivated. Like we had a client come out to a competition. She just watched because she wanted to kind of get a feel for it. And she was so excited just watching. And then she was like, now I'm going to do it. And then she's done our in-house, like, little stuff that we've done. And she's gotten super motivated. It's rewarding for us as trainers. And really, Sully's the coach. And I'm just like the little cheerleader in the corner. But it's super motivating for us to see how happy that makes people. Like right now, our focus is growing our team and just making people have fun with it, enjoying fitness, because I think that's always a challenge for people in general. When they want to start working out, it's like, now I have to go to the gym. Where if we can make it fun, right, they're going to show up. And that's kind of what Kettlebells 100%. Does.
I'm all for them having fun. 100%. What I get my kicks on is when, you know, Miss Jones or Miss James, like we talked about earlier, goes cyborg mode, and you can see it in their eyes, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna own this. I'm gonna own this set." When the housewife picks up the 16, and they're like, you know, I may do only 5 reps or 10 reps, but I'm gonna do them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. They kind of have that like that stone cold look on their face. And they're like, yep,
totally.
That just happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's exciting.
Still gives me goosebumps, man. Still gives me goosebumps.
Yeah. No, it's really nice to see just clients grow, right? And Kettlebell Sport is a nice way to guide people in that direction.
If they don't have that guidance. I've got some specific questions for you. Who does the programming for your kettlebell club?
I do most of it. Emily, who is kind of our special team snatch coach, she does most of the snatch. She does my snatch, you know, she does my snatch program. She does Linda's snatch programming. And then she does, the snatch kind of technique when we're all together in a group. She's actually coached by Dennis Vasilov, for her own training. And so her program is Dennis Vasilov. And then like, you know, because we're with Emily, and we get to see, you know, her lift from all angles in person. I'll do my best and my part to give her feedback on her programming as well.
So that's kind of part of it there. The other thing I wanted to ask was, okay, so if she's doing snatch programming, including your snatch programming, so who's doing your Longcycle programming? Are you self-coaching for a lot of your stuff, or do you have a coach?
I am self-coaching for most of my stuff except for snatch.
Okay, so when you host competitions or when competitions roll around, I mean, as of right now, or at least the past couple of years, how many competitions have you done? Have you participated in?
Have I participated in, or have we hosted?
That you've participated in.
Oh, Jesus. I don't know. Maybe. Let me think about that for a second. So it's 2017. We've done 1, 2, 3. So I competed 6 times last year.
You know, you could have made it easy and just said all of them.
Yeah, I did a lot.
Okay.
It almost feels like, I know last year, it almost feels like I had one every month. This year I've competed in February, March, April, nothing in May. I'll compete in June, August, and in September. So that's what, 6 or 7.
Did you go to Cali in February?
We did, yes.
Oh, nice.
So that was us in February. And then March, we were in Michigan. April was our meet. June will be the Chicago Kettlebell Classic. August will be the Longcycle Championship. And then September will be the Texas Kettlebell Open with Aaron and his crew out in Austin.
Right.
So are you doing a bit of a West Side thing with your kettlebell right now where you're trying to be like amazing all year round? Or are you, because you do the strength and conditioning thing, and for the sake of simplicity, we'll lump that in with bodybuilding and we'll separate that out from your kettlebell training. Sure. So how are you partitioning your kettlebell focus from your other training? And are you actually preparing programming that's leading you up to a given competition, or are you just kind of trying to stay, pretty good all year round?
So with kettlebell sport, what in the past, what I've done is I've always trained for numbers, which I mean, for me being a business guy, like that made sense at first, but the problem with that is like I just wrecked my body by doing that.
Right.
Trying to just like, always push on the gas, always push on the gas, always push on the gas, and then just like take my horsepower to the limit each time. It never really I never walked away from like a training session being like, wow, I actually learned something. It was more like after every like Longcycle session or what have you, I'm just like, yeah, man, I totally crushed that, Then after a while, it was like, God, I'm hurting everywhere, right? So I actually had to take a break from Longcycle and move into like biathlon for a little bit, just for the sake of I didn't want to lose any technique or just fitness under the bells, but Longcycle was just destroying me. Mm-hmm. So truthfully now I've actually backed off a lot on frequency. Training with bells, and I basically will look at what event I'm doing at a certain comp. So, for example, I'm scheduled to do a 5-minute triathlon at this June comp, and then I will like look at the X amount of weeks leading to that competition, and then build my programming to make sure that I peak for whatever for whatever the events I'm at for that comp. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So since I wasn't doing Longcycle, like I haven't cleaned a bell in forever. So I was just training biathlon for a while. And then prior to just training biathlon, I was just training snatch. So the last 4 months of 2017, I only did snatch. So there was kind of like I guess you'd say like a rude awakening. I'm like, I don't have to train all 3 lifts all the time. I could just, focus on whatever I need to focus on for competition, and then kind of work my way backwards, and then run through the programming leading up to that event to peak.
And when you're focusing on that one lift, are you still trying to improve your numbers in that lift with that bell, or are you basically looking to maintain just a high standard of performance regardless of where the reps really fall?
So I was always a big fan of train. When during your training sessions, you should learn from them, right? The training is just like practice, no different than like if you're going to practice singing or something. Just for your conversational purposes, it should be just that practice where you're looking to improve and you're looking for certain aspects of whatever your skill is, and you're addressing them for that session. When it comes to competition day, it's like at the end of the day, it's all about reps, right? So, I guess for me, it's during my training, I will approach my training and my trainings leading up to competition as such, just practice, work on things that I know that I need to work on, things that I'm constantly, maybe things that I'm terrible at doing, but trying to make them not as terrible, right?
And then basically see where the reps fall on competition day.
Yeah, and then in competition, just make sure, hopefully the stars align and I'm able to still keep decent technique, or at least, fixate, make my reps count, make them look tight and crispy, but really just kind of push the lungs and push the horsepower, and making sure that I could still, work, right? And essentially that's me. That's my mindset, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about reps, right? No one can, I guess again, that's me. Come competition day, as long as you're going through the right sequences, and as long as you're fixating, and as long as you're doing the reps the way that there should, put them up as many as you can, as fast as you can. It's not a beauty contest where they have to look effortless or so on and so forth. Like, no, man, like you're the final, 2-3 minutes you're working, right? And if you're at that point where, you're at the end of your set and you look like you have plenty more in the tank, like, well, you misjudged your timing, right? You could have put more in, and you walk away from that set and like, all right, well, I know I got more in the tank. Let's next competition, I'll leave more out there.
Very cool. Are you still competing in bodybuilding at all, or are you done?
Oh,
or
God,
not really done, but don't have anything on the schedule at the moment.
So for the longest time, I've been competing in the 95 kilogram weight class. Truthfully, my body weight would like fall. I would almost hit weigh-ins at 90 kilos, and every competition I would walk away and be like, man, I gotta lose it. I'm too fucking fat, man. I gotta lose this weight, right? There's no reason, like I don't like last year in California, I was lifting 32s, and they had a live feed, and they had 10 platforms at the Cali Open, and you could immediately tell which one I was in, because I was like the one guy that was like 2 feet shorter than everybody else, right? So I'm like, I need to, I'm not the tallest guy there. I wanted to lose weight, so I actually dropped down to the 85 kilo, like, with some time, and in doing such, like, I'm like, wow, abs look great, so on and so forth. Like, I still look like a bodybuilder. So to answer your question, like, I think I will at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, I still feel like I have some kind of things, business to take care of in that universe. But right now, that's not my focus.
Right.
I feel like when things kind of settle down with like business and family, and I could dedicate, time and energy to that is needed by that universe, I think I will. And and mentally too, I'm not ready to do that right now.
Yeah, fair enough.
What lessons have you learned trying to fit in both bodybuilding and kettlebell sport in the same training season?
So for when I first started getting to kettlebell sports, I noticed that a lot of the men that were lifting like had very similar body types that was not similar to mine, right? A lot of them would have the, long, lanky, not overly muscular look. And then there would be like me, and just like, what is this guy doing? Right. So I was always told, by more experienced lifters, like, hey, what do you do for your training? And I'm always like, well, I lift and I squat, bench, deadlift, do a bunch of this crap. And they're like, oh, well, you should probably just run a lot more and not lift so much, because you're too barrel chested or what have you. And that was like the consensus, man. Like every competition that I went to, and I started to learn more about like lifters from different regions, they would all have that same kind of lanky body type. And I'm just like, I don't like that, right? Like, I don't want to look like that. I spent too much time trying not to look like that. So I didn't, right? I still kept on lifting, and still kept on lifting bells and getting under them. And it really just took some time for me to just like learn my body and learn what it meant to like really relax in your rack position and to kind of get that thoracic mobility, and which is still an issue for me. But it gave me a new respect for, being mobile, right? And like being mobile when you needed to be mobile, but being stable when you needed to be stable.
Right. So do you feel like you have to work on your flexibility a little bit more just due to your muscle mass, or?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I took a workshop this past weekend that was a 2-day thing, and it was 8 hours, right? It was like 9 to 6 both days. And I walked in there with my wife, and I'm like, oh my God, I could barely sit down like in a movie theater for more than 40 minutes without having to fidget. So sure enough, I'm sitting there and like moving side to side and so on and so forth. And every time they gave us a break, I would get up and like go to the back of the room and like lie on the ground and get into some yoga poses. And everyone's like, don't you own a gym? Like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, dude, you like, I can't sit down like, for that long and just feel all locked up like that.
Yeah.
I joke around and I tell people all the time, like, if you're in like one of those workshops, you could always tell who the fitness people are, because they're going to be the ones in the back, constantly standing up, constantly like going to the bathroom. Like, those are going to be the fitness guys.
It's true.
But yeah, I mean, Rachel, to answer your question, yes. Like, I feel like I spend a lot of time mobilizing before lifting, both, before I get under bells and before I get under the bar. I feel like I have a deeper respect for being able to move better, so that I can better put myself in advantageous positions, rather than just like force myself into those positions, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the amusing irony when it comes to that little bit of pushback that seems to be there against having some muscular bulk in the sport of kettlebells is we always seem to hear this dialogue, oh, it's great for any body type and anyone can do it. And then it's like, oh, but God forbid you have a few muscles. God forbid you have some biceps. And it's like, okay, well, tell me what the difference is between the person who has the barrel chest that's barrel chested because it's fat and the guy who has the barrel chest because it's muscular. Tell me what the difference is there. At least the guy who has muscles has functional tissue that will at least give him, some form of advantage over the guy whose extra tissue is not functional.
Well,
right, it's just squishy.
It's just squishy.
One observation I notice is guys with biceps. I think sometimes the judges have a hard time knowing lockout. It seems to sometimes get called a little bit more on guys with biceps. I know people always comment about Sully's biceps, but
and how they're just so big and round.
Well, even when we were in Korea at World, someone's like, "Oh, you have you stopped lifting weights? Your biceps look smaller." And I was saying, "No, he's just leaned out a little bit just from all the training is really what it is."
There's actually a series of selfie shots that people take with me where my head's cut out and it's just my bicep with them.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
But yeah, I don't know. I think sometimes maybe that's why it's discouraged. Not discouraged, but I do think that judges maybe have a hard time with the fixation of the elbow, or even their overhead positioning, depending on how tight the person's shoulders are. I mean,
I haven't heard anyone make a deal out of that. I would have to say, if you've got good terminal elbow extension, then it becomes almost a moot point, because if you've got good elbow extension, then it's pretty clear whether your arms are straight or not, and how well you can hold that overhead position. But I mean, there are instances where I feel like, okay, would I feel more comfortable in the rack if my triceps were smaller or bigger? And I would say that my chest probably struggles more than someone who doesn't have as well developed chest in the rack. Sometimes I feel like it's almost hard not to use my chest in the rack sometimes. And
I understand. You get that chest pump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rachel's like, yeah, totally.
I totally have that problem.
Anyways,
No.
Rachel, do you have any further questions?
No, I think it's probably late for you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm usually finishing up work at this time, but I made sure to get that done before I left.
You're a sweet guy, Mike.
You're a hard worker, that's for sure.
Non-stop hustle.
Yeah, no, I think we touched on most of the stuff.
Oh, what about the intern?
Oh, Sully wanted to ask about, he did come across that you had an internship through the university for students. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Again, this goes about how, sometimes we get contacted. We've been contacted by local universities in the past asking if we'd like to participate in some of their programs for their students. And I never really had any ties to any of these universities. Just because, I didn't, right? I didn't go there. I didn't know anyone that went there, that was close to me, so on and so forth.
But you were hoping there might be an honorary doctorate out of this if you...
Oh, that would be great. That would only validate everything, right? It's all about validation, right? So we recently got contacted by the university that I went to, Loyola University, and they reached out to us, asking if we would be interested in becoming a site for their exercise science program. And I totally jumped on it. And I said this before, I went to Loyola, and I want to thank them for, this is my opportunity to give back to them, for giving me the tools, that helped me succeed. So I didn't know what to expect, right? Basically, they had given me the contact information for these 4 students that were going to come by. I scheduled time to meet with them, and I met with them, and it was cool. A few of them were fitness minded. Some were somewhat interested, and didn't maybe not as fitness was not that important, but they understood that it was very important, and so on and so forth. But truthfully, we met in December. And I told them, like, hey, this is gonna be my first rodeo doing this. I'm gonna try to keep it as structured and engaging as I can. But you're in this until April, so we're talking 5 months of it. And truthfully, man, like it's been an awesome experience. And showing them the ins and outs of the business, and learning from them. Learning from how I could be a better coach, a better trainer, a better manager, a better business owner. And then, we got close and we're able to, help them, right. Give them a sneak peek of what it's like to own, run, and manage a fitness business. Speaking about kettlebells and interns, right. One of the interns, actually 2 of them, actually learned how to do, both 1 and 2 arm Longcycle lifts.
Nice.
As part of they had to do like a end of a midterm, and then like a end of year kind of report / project. One of them did it on Kettlebell Sport, and then the other one did it on diaphragm breathing, which I was also kind of big on.
Very cool.
But the one of the guys actually is going to compete at the competition in June. He signed up for a 5-minute set. But I told him he knows he's got 5 minutes in the bag. And I told him, like, dude, the clocks are going to go to 10 minutes anyway. If you get to 5 and you have more in the tank, just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I had such a fun time. I loved having him over, and I loved, being able to kind of teach, right. Guide them, per se. And it was also fun to just kind of shoot the shit with them. They're 10 years, or no, what is 10? Yeah, they're 10 years younger than me, 9 or 10 years younger than me. So, I'm like super hip now, like with how the college kids talk. So I know all the cool slang words and what's going on and so on and so forth. But they're done, right? They've graduated. Again, it's like talking about the little birds flying away. So it's kind of sad, not having the interns over. But we're getting a new batch in the fall, and again, I'm looking forward to having him over, and I know the rest of the gym is as well. And then I hope to fine tune kind of the program that I put together for these guys, and just hopefully make it improve on it year after year.
Right. Very cool.
Now the next step, of course, is to get some of those fitness business management people running your competitions for you, and then that would be just gold.
Yeah, all you have to do is show up.
That would, man. Yeah, it would. Truthfully, Solomon and Rachel, like we're, like we have a great kind of back end type team that kind of does a lot of the work, a lot of the behind the scenes work, running organizations. We were actually trying to see if we could package that and like offer it as a service. Cause I mean, this, like, there's not really, a standard when going to competitions. It's kind of like, well, you kind of show up and it's going to either be like well run, or it's going to be, could be run better. Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of something that we're still working on our end. But we definitely want to see if we could set the new standard for how competitions are run, and kind of learn from the other competitions that have been around longer than we have, and kind of just like take what we feel is important and kind of build on that. So that's kind of something that, again, another kind of side project of many that we have over here.
Very cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Mike, for sharing all of those interesting things with us and answering our questions. And Rachel, is there anything else that you'd like to say?
I just keep thinking, like, I keep saying to Sully, I want to go to Chicago. Just instead of like landing in the airport, I want to actually see Chicago.
Right on. Yeah.
And we've always kind of been like, oh, what competition should we do this year? And for sure, we're going to have to make your competition one on our list.
Absolutely.
Well, it's already on the list.
It's on the list, and we just got to check it off. And I'm just thinking in my head, okay, when are we going to plan this? Because I would love to see your gym, too, and just kind of get to see what you're doing, because I just love seeing people succeed, and it's been awesome talking to you. So I really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Mike, how can people find you, and where can they follow you?
The business website's evofitchicago.com. That's EVOFIT Chicago.com. You can follow me on Facebook at Mike Salazar, or on Instagram at EvoFitMike.
Awesome. Thank you so much for talking to us, and we will chat with you soon.
Thanks for having me, guys. It means a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Have a good
night.
You too.